The emergency beacon cut through hyperspace like a scream in the dark. Its signal reached every civilized world within 50 light-years, carrying the desperate plea of the Zilani people. Captain Vexhai of the Galactic Peacekeeping Force received the transmission on his flagship while patrolling the Outer Rim territories. "Sir, we're getting an emergency broadcast from the Zilani homeworld," his communications officer reported, her forearms working rapidly across the holographic displays. "It's a code black distress signal." Vexhai straightened in his command chair, his scaled hide shifting from green to a worried yellow. Code black meant imminent planetary destruction. In his 40 years of service, he'd only seen 3 such signals, and each time, entire species hung in the balance. "Put it through," he commanded. The main screen flickered to life, showing the desperate face of Chancellor Morin, the elderly Zilani leader. Her usually pristine blue-white fur was matted with sweat, and her large silver eyes held barely contained terror. "This is Chancellor Morin of the Zilani Republic," her voice crackled through the static. "We are under attack by the Korthik Horde. Our defense fleets have been destroyed. Our orbital stations are burning. We have perhaps 6 hours before they begin planetary bombardment. Please, anyone who can hear this transmission, we beg for immediate assistance. Our population of 4 billion souls faces complete extinction." The transmission cut to static, then repeated in an endless loop. Vexhai's bridge fell silent except for the soft humming of ship systems. Everyone knew about the Korthik Horde. They were raiders from the Galactic Edge, a brutal coalition of species that had been growing bolder in recent years. Their ships were heavily armed and their tactics ruthless. They showed no mercy to the civilizations they conquered. "Analysis, Lieutenant Corps," Vexhai ordered his tactical officer. The insectoid officer's mandibles clicked nervously as he worked. "Sir, based on the transmission timestamp, the attack began 14 hours ago. Even if we departed immediately and pushed our engines to maximum, we wouldn't reach Zilani space for at least 18 hours. By then..." He didn't need to finish. Everyone on the bridge understood. "What about other peacekeeping vessels?" Vexhai asked. "The nearest squadron is 24 hours out, sir. The Andromedan fleet is celebrating their harvest festival and won't be able to respond for at least 36 hours. The Crystalline Collective ships are too slow to arrive in time." Vexhai slammed his fist against his armrest. The Galactic Peacekeeping Force had been stretched thin lately, with multiple conflicts brewing across several sectors. It was a cruel twist of fate that the Zilani crisis came at a moment when help was so far away. "Sir," the communications officer interrupted. "We're receiving responses to the distress call." "Finally. Which fleets are responding?" Her expression grew confused as she studied her readouts. "Sir, it's not any of the traditional peacekeeping forces. The response is coming from the Sol System." A collective intake of breath swept across the bridge. Sol System meant Earth. It meant humans. "That can't be correct," Vexhai said slowly. "Humans don't have interstellar military capabilities. They're barely past their first contact protocols. Sir, I'm reading multiple ship signatures emerging from Sol's hyperspace junction. The transponder codes identify them as the Terran Defense Force." Vexhai felt his scales shift to a deeper yellow of confusion. Humanity had been introduced to galactic civilization only 70 years ago. They were considered a young species, barely worthy of a seat in the outer councils. Their planet Earth was classified as a Class 12 death world, making it one of the most hostile environments known to support intelligent life. Most galactic citizens assumed this meant humans were primitive survivors, tough but technologically backwards. "How many ships?" he asked. "Sensors are showing." "This can't be right. I'm reading over 200 vessels." 200? Vexhai's voice cracked. "That's larger than most sector defense fleets." The tactical officer's mandibles clicked rapidly as he processed the incoming data. "Sir, the energy signatures are ... unusual. These ships appear to be heavily armed. Much more so than typical for their technology level." "Put me in contact with their fleet commander," Vexhai ordered. The screen flickered, and suddenly they were looking at a human face. The being appeared young by galactic standards, with short-cropped brown hair and intense brown eyes. What struck Vexai immediately was the complete lack of fear in those eyes. Instead, he saw cold determination and something that looked almost like controlled anger. "This is Admiral Sarah Chun of the Terran Defense Force," the human said. Her voice was steady, professional. "We received the Zilani distress call and are responding immediately. Admiral Chun, this is Captain Vexai of the Galactic Peacekeeping Force. While we appreciate your enthusiasm, I must inform you that the Korthek Horde consists of over 300 heavily armed vessels. They've never been defeated in direct combat. Perhaps you should consider, with respect, Captain," Admiral Chun interrupted, and Vexai was surprised by the steel in her voice. "The Zilani have 4 billion people facing extinction. We're not going to stand by and watch while bureaucrats debate response protocols. Admiral, you don't understand. Your species lacks the military experience to face an enemy like the Kortheks. They've been waging interstellar war for over 2 centuries. Something flickered across the human's face. Was that amusement? "Captain, humanity has been waging war for our entire existence. We've been fighting on a Class 12 Deathworld since before we discovered fire. Every day of our evolution has been a battle for survival against predators, disasters, disease, and each other. We've fought wars with sticks and stones, with swords and shields, with guns and bombs, and now with ships among the stars." Admiral Chun leaned forward, and her eyes seemed to bore directly through the screen. "The Kortheks chose to threaten innocent people. That was their mistake. We're not going to negotiate. We're not going to posture. We're going to stop them." The transmission ended abruptly, leaving Vexai staring at a blank screen. "Sir?" his navigation officer called out. "The human fleet has just jumped to hyperspace. They're heading directly for Zilani space." Vexai settled back in his chair, his mind reeling. In all his years of service, he'd never encountered anything like the quiet confidence he'd just witnessed. Most species approached warfare as a last resort, something to be avoided through diplomacy and careful maneuvering. But this human admiral spoke of war like others discussed the weather. "Sir, should we follow?" his executive officer asked. Vexai considered for a moment. Every instinct told him this was about to become a disaster. Humans charging headfirst into a battle they couldn't win, probably getting themselves killed while accomplishing nothing. But something about Admiral Chun's eyes nagged at him. That wasn't the look of someone heading to certain doom. That was the look of someone who had already decided how this was going to end. "Yes," he said finally. "Set course for Zilani space. Maximum speed." As his ship jumped to hyperspace, Vexai couldn't shake the feeling that the galaxy was about to learn something important about the species from the small blue-green world in the Sol system. Meanwhile, in the depths of space between stars, Admiral Sarah Chun stood on the bridge of the TNS Retribution, watching the swirl of hyperspace outside the forward viewports. Around her, 237 ships of the Terran Defense Force cut through space toward their destination. Her executive officer, Commander James Rodriguez, approached with a tactical pad in hand. "Admiral, preliminary intelligence suggests the Korthek force consists of 347 vessels. Their ships appear to be larger than ours on average." "Understood," Chun replied without taking her eyes off the viewport. "What's our ETA?" 14 hours, ma'am. We should arrive approximately 4 hours after the Kortheks begin planetary bombardment." Chun's jaw tightened. She'd spent the last hour reviewing everything. Earth's intelligence services had gathered about the Korthek Horde. They were raiders and slavers, a confederation of aggressive species that had been expanding their territory through conquest and intimidation. Their tactics relied on overwhelming force and brutality. Designed to break enemy morale, they'd picked the wrong species to intimidate. "Send a message to all ship commanders," she ordered. "We'll be conducting a standard Earth doctrine assault. No warning shots, no attempts to negotiate. The moment we drop out of hyperspace, we engage with maximum force." Commander Rodriguez nodded. He'd served with Chun for 8 years, and he recognized the tone in her voice. It was the same tone she'd used before the Battle of Proxima when pirates had attacked a civilian transport. Those pirates had learned too late that humans didn't make distinctions between military and civilian targets when it came to protecting innocent people. "Ma'am," Rodriguez said quietly, "the other galactic species are going to be watching this closely. If we succeed, it changes everything about how they see humanity." Chun finally turned from the viewport, meeting his eyes with her steady gaze. "James, 4 billion people are about to die unless we stop it. I don't care what the galaxy thinks about us. I care about making sure those people are still alive tomorrow." She looked around at her bridge crew, all of them focused on their duties with the quiet professionalism that had become The space above Zalani Prime looked like a graveyard of stars. Burning debris from the planet's defense fleet drifted in slowly expanding clouds, their twisted metal hulks catching the light from the system's twin suns, the once proud orbital stations that had protected the world for centuries, were nothing more than glowing wreckage falling toward the planet's atmosphere. Warlord Krextar stood on the command deck of his flagship, the massive dreadnought Bone Crusher, and felt satisfaction surge through his four-chambered heart. The Zalani had put up more resistance than expected, but in the end they had fallen like all the others. Their ships were too lightly armored, their weapons too weak, their crews too soft to face the brutal efficiency of the Korthic war machine. "Report," he commanded, his voice a deep rumble that made the bridge plates vibrate. "The orbital defenses." "Completely destroyed, Warlord," his tactical officer reported. "We have 47 ships positioned for planetary bombardment. The remaining fleet is securing the perimeter and hunting down the last few escape pods." Krextar nodded his massive head, scars from 1,000 battles visible across his armored hide. The Korthax had perfected this dance of destruction over 2 centuries of conquest. First, overwhelm the defenders with superior numbers and firepower. Then systematically destroy their ability to resist. Finally, bombard their world until they surrendered unconditionally. It had never failed. "Begin the bombardment in 1 hour," he ordered. "Target their major population centers first. Once they see their cities burning, their government will surrender within days. Yes, Warlord." "Shall we ignore the distress beacon?" "They transmitted?" Krextar's laugh was like grinding stone. "Let them call for help. By the time any peacekeeping forces arrive, this world will belong to us. The galaxy has grown soft and slow. They spend months debating while we act." His communications officer suddenly straightened at her station, multiple tentacles dancing across her instruments. "Warlord, we're detecting hyperspace signatures at the edge of the system. How many ships?" "Sensors are showing." "Many signatures, Warlord." "Perhaps the peacekeeping force arrived faster than expected." Krextar's predatory smile widened. "Even better. We'll add their ships to our trophy collection." "How many vessels?" The officer's voice grew uncertain. "The readings are unclear, Warlord. Perhaps 200 ships, but the sensor returns are strange." Before Krextar could respond, space itself seemed to tear open at the system's edge. Brilliant tears in reality appeared as ships dropped out of hyperspace, their forms resolving as the spatial distortions faded. But these weren't the elegant, curved vessels typical of galactic peacekeeping forces. These ships were angular, aggressive, built like weapons rather than symbols of diplomatic authority. "What species builds ships like that?" Krextar demanded. His tactical officer worked frantically at his console. "Unknown configuration, Warlord. The design principles are unlike anything in our databases. They appear to be heavily armed, with multiple weapon systems and thick armor plating." More ships continued to emerge from hyperspace, their formations precise and disciplined. Within minutes, over 200 vessels hung at the system's edge like a wall of silent steel. They made no move to advance, issued no demands, sent no diplomatic messages. They simply waited. It was somehow more threatening than if they had charged forward with weapons blazing. "Open a communication channel," Krextar ordered. "Let's see what fools have come to die today." The main screen activated, and Krextar found himself looking at the strangest alien he had ever encountered. The being appeared relatively small and fragile, with pale skin, dark hair, and eyes that seemed almost black in the dim lighting. But those eyes, they held something that made Krekstar's predatory instincts suddenly wake up and take notice. "I am Admiral Sarah Chun of the Terran Defense Force," the being said in a voice that carried no emotion whatsoever. "You have exactly 10 minutes to withdraw your forces from this system and return to your own space." Krekstar blinked his 6 eyes in surprise. In 2 centuries of conquest, no one had ever made demands of him with such casual confidence. "I am Warlord Krekstar of the Korthek Horde. The system now belongs to us by right of conquest. You will withdraw immediately or be destroyed." The human's expression didn't change. "Warlord Krekstar, you have attacked a peaceful civilization and threatened 4 billion innocent lives. You have 9 minutes and 30 seconds to begin your withdrawal." Something about the alien's complete lack of fear sent warning signals through Krekstar's combat-honed mind. He had faced desperate enemies before, beings fighting for their lives who showed courage born of desperation. This was different. This human spoke with the certainty of someone who had already won and was simply explaining the outcome. "You command." "Barely 200 ships against my 300, Krekstar snarled. "Your vessels are smaller than ours. You are outnumbered and outgunned. What makes you think you can make demands?" "Because," Admiral Chun replied, and for the first time, Krekstar detected something resembling emotion in her voice. It might have been pity. "You made the mistake of threatening people under our protection. 8 minutes." The transmission ended abruptly. Krekstar stared at the blank screen for several seconds, his mind processing what had just occurred. In his experience, there were only 2 types of beings who showed such confidence in the face of overwhelming odds: those who were completely insane, and those who knew something their enemies didn't. "All ships, combat formation," he commanded. "These unknown aliens wish to die heroically. We will grant their wish." The Korthek fleet began to move, their ships spreading into the classic hammer formation that had crushed dozens of systems. 347 vessels of war, each one a testament to generations of refined military engineering, advanced toward the smaller human force on her flagship. Admiral Chun watched the enemy movement with the calm attention of a chess grandmaster studying the board. Around her, the bridge crew performed their duties with quiet efficiency, their movements precise and unhurried despite the approaching battle. "Enemy fleet is advancing," her tactical officer reported. "They're using standard engagement formation Alpha 7. Estimated time to weapon range, 6 minutes. "Acknowledged," Chun replied. "Signal the fleet. Execute battle plan Omega 3. Throughout the human formation, ships began to move with mechanical precision. Unlike the flowing, organic movements typical of most galactic fleets, the humans moved like components of a vast machine, each vessel sliding into position with mathematical exactness. Commander Rodriguez stepped up beside Chun's chair. "Ma'am, should we try to contact the Zilani government? Let them know help has arrived?" Chun shook her head. "They'll know soon enough. Besides, we're not here to reassure them. We're here to solve their problem." On the planet below, Chancellor Morin huddled in her government's emergency bunker, watching the tactical displays with growing desperation. The mysterious new fleet had appeared like an answer to prayers, but they were so heavily outnumbered. She had hoped for a miracle, but this looked like it would only add to the tragedy. "Who are they?" asked General Vakan, her military advisor. "The transponders identify them as the Terran Defense Force," Morin replied. "But I've never heard of any species called Terrans." "Neither have I. Their ships don't match any known galactic designs." High above them, the 2 fleets closed to weapon range. Krekstar gave the order to fire, expecting to see the smaller force overwhelmed by the sheer volume of Korthek firepower. Energy beams and projectiles lanced through space toward the human ships. What happened next would be discussed in galactic military academies for centuries. The human ships didn't attempt to dodge the incoming fire. Instead, they absorbed it, their shields flaring brilliant white as they dissipated enormous amounts of energy. When the light faded, every human vessel remained intact, their formations undisturbed. "Impossible," Krekstar breathed. "Nothing can withstand that much firepower." "Sir," his tactical officer called out. "The enemy is returning fire." The human response was unlike anything in Korthik experience. Instead of the scattered, individualistic combat style common to most species, the human fleet acted as a single organism. Their weapons fired in precisely coordinated volleys. Multiple ships targeting single enemy vessels with mathematical precision. The first salvo struck the Korthik formation like a hammer blow. 12 ships simply vanished, their shields overwhelmed and hulls vaporized in seconds. The second salvo followed immediately, claiming 15 more vessels with the same clinical efficiency. "All ships, evasive maneuvers," Krekstar roared. But the humans seemed to anticipate every movement. Their targeting systems, tracking fleeing vessels with remorseless accuracy, the battle became a rout in less than 20 minutes. The feared Korthik horde, conquerors of dozens of systems, found themselves being systematically dismantled by an enemy that fought with the cold precision of a natural disaster. Their weapons couldn't penetrate human shields. Their superior numbers meant nothing against coordinated firepower that treated their formations like mathematical problems to be solved. Krekstar watched his fleet die around him and felt something he had never experienced before: genuine fear. These humans didn't fight with passion or desperation. They fought with the calculated efficiency of beings. The silence in the Galactic Council chamber was so complete that Ambassador Elena Vasquez could hear her own heartbeat. Representatives from 47 different species sat in their assigned seats, all staring at the holographic display showing the aftermath of the Battle of Zalani Prime. The debris field stretched for thousands of kilometers. The twisted remains of Korthik warships, serving as a monument to humanity's decisive victory. Elder Zephyron of the Altarian Collective was the first to break the silence, his crystalline voice resonating through the chamber's acoustic dampeners. "Ambassador Vasquez, the Council requires clarification. Are we to understand that the Terran defense force destroyed or disabled 347 enemy vessels while suffering 0 casualties?" Elena nodded calmly. "That is correct, Elder. The Korthik fleet was completely neutralized. Approximately 60 vessels escaped to hyperspace, and the remainder either surrendered or were destroyed. All human vessels returned to base without significant damage." A murmur of disbelief rippled through the assembled delegates. The Korthik horde had been a known threat for over 2 centuries. They had conquered 12 star systems and raided dozens more. Their military might was legendary, their tactics brutal but effective. The idea that they could be so thoroughly defeated in a single engagement seemed impossible. Counselor Vex High, recently promoted after his first-hand observation of the battle, stepped forward. "Honored council members, I was present during the engagement. What the recordings show is accurate. The human fleet demonstrated technological and tactical superiority that exceeded all our previous assessments. But they're a Class 12 Deathworld species," protested Representative Quintal of the Peaceful Commerce Alliance. "Our xenobiological studies indicated they would be too primitive for advanced military operations." Elena allowed herself a small smile. "Representative Quintal, I believe your xenobiological studies may have focused on the wrong characteristics. You assessed our environment's lethality and concluded we would be primitive survivors. What your analysis missed is that surviving on Earth for millions of years required us to become very, very good at problem-solving under extreme pressure." High Counselor Mordain, the ancient leader of the Galactic Council, leaned forward on his gravity throne. His species had been spacefaring for over 3,000 years, and his voice carried the authority of eons. "Ambassador, the Council is concerned about the implications of your species' military capabilities. The destruction of the Korthik fleet was ... unprecedented. We must understand your intentions." "Our intentions are simple, High Counselor," Elena replied. "We responded to a distress call from a peaceful civilization under attack. 4 billion innocent lives were threatened. We acted to protect them. That's all?" "But the manner of your response," pressed Senator Kryvax of the Neutral Zone Coalition. "Your ships appeared to treat the Korthik fleet like training targets. The precision, the coordination, the absolute lack of mercy shown to raiders who had never been defeated. This suggests military doctrine far more advanced than expected from a species so new to galactic civilization. Elena exchanged glances with Admiral Chun, who sat quietly in the observers section. They had anticipated these questions during their journey to the Council headquarters. The galaxy was struggling to understand what it had witnessed, and humanity's comfortable anonymity was about to end permanently. Senators, councilors, distinguished representatives, Elena began, standing to address the full assembly. Let me explain something about humanity that your previous assessments may have overlooked. Earth didn't just make us tough, it made us smart. When a species spends its entire evolutionary history facing predators, natural disasters, disease, and countless other threats, certain traits become essential. She activated a holographic display showing Earth from orbit. The blue-green world looked deceptively peaceful from space. Every day on our planet is a lesson in tactical thinking, resource management, and rapid adaptation. When a storm system can kill thousands of people, you learn to track weather patterns and predict outcomes. When predators hunt in coordinated packs, you learn to work as a team and think several steps ahead. When resources are scarce, you learn to maximize efficiency and minimize waste. The display shifted to show various Earth conflicts throughout human history. We've been refining the art of warfare for thousands of years, not because we're inherently violent, but because survival on our world required us to become excellent at group coordination, strategic planning, and tactical innovation. Every human military officer is trained in principles that evolved from millions of years of evolutionary pressure. Elder Zephyrin S. crystalline structure dimmed thoughtfully. Are you suggesting that your entire species has been unconsciously preparing for interstellar warfare since before you achieved spaceflight? I'm suggesting that the same instincts that helped our ancestors hunt mammoth in coordinated groups and defend against predators translate very well to fleet combat, Elena replied. The Korthax made the mistake of treating us like typical galactic species. They expected us to fight like individuals. Instead, they faced an enemy that views war as a complex problem requiring systematic solutions. High Counselor Mordain studied the human ambassador with new respect. The Battle of Zelani Prime was not a fluke, then. Your species can replicate such military success. Elena's smile became sharper. High Counselor, what you witnessed at Zelani Prime was a standard Terran defense, force deployment operating under restrictive rules of engagement. We were specifically ordered to minimize collateral damage and avoid unnecessary destruction. The chamber fell silent again as the implications of that statement sank in. The devastating defeat of the Korthic horde had been accomplished while humans were holding back. Representative Luxara of the Peaceful Worlds Alliance spoke carefully. Ambassador, the Council is not accustomed to dealing with species possessing such military capability. Your actions at Zelani Prime, while appreciated, raise questions about humanity's role in galactic affairs. What questions specifically? Elena asked. Questions about expansion, territorial claims, resource acquisition, Senator Kryvak said bluntly. Species with overwhelming military advantage have historically used it for conquest. Admiral Chun rose from her seat in the observers section. May I address that concern directly? High Counselor Mordain nodded permission. Chun approached the center of the chamber, her bearing calm and professional. Honored Council members, I commanded the fleet at Zelani Prime. I want to make something very clear about human military doctrine. We didn't develop our capabilities for conquest. We developed them for protection. She gestured to the holographic display showing the aftermath of the battle. Every human officer is trained in a concept we call defensive superiority. The idea is simple. Be so overwhelmingly capable of protecting what matters to you that no one will ever be foolish enough to threaten it. The Korthics threatened people we had committed to protect. The result was inevitable. But what constitutes people you have committed to protect? Asked Counselor Vexhai. Chun's answer sent a chill through the chamber. Anyone who calls for help and receives our answer. The political implications of that statement were staggering. Humanity was essentially declaring themselves the protectors of any civilization that asked for their aid. It was a commitment that could reshape the balance of power across the galaxy. Elder Zephyrin voiced what everyone was thinking. Admiral, you're proposing to become the galaxy's unofficial defense force? I'm stating that we already are, Chun replied simply. The Zilani called for help. We answered. The next species that faces extinction while we're within range will receive the same response. It's not a political decision. It's who we are. High Counselor Mordain leaned back in his throne, his ancient mind processing the fundamental shift occurring in galactic politics. A species had emerged from the edge of civilization with the military capacity to enforce their moral commitments across interstellar space. It was unprecedented. Ambassador Vasquez, Admiral Chun, he said finally. The Council will need time to discuss these developments. But I believe it's safe to say that humanity's status in galactic affairs will be ... upgraded. 3 weeks later, Chancellor Morin of the Zilani Republic stood before her planet's Continental Assembly, reading from a formal document that would change her world forever. By unanimous vote of the Zilani Continental Assembly, and with the grateful approval of our people, we hereby petition for inclusion in the Terran Protection Accords. Let it be known throughout the galaxy that Zilani Prime stands under the protection of Earth and her allies. Similar proclamations were being read on 17 other worlds that had suffered under various threats in the months following the Battle of Zilani Prime. Word had spread quickly through galactic communication networks. Humanity would respond to calls for help with overwhelming force and absolute commitment. The mere existence of the Terran Defense Force had changed the strategic calculations of every aggressive species in the galaxy. Pirates, raiders, and would-be conquerors found themselves facing a new reality. Attacking peaceful civilizations might bring down the wrath of beings who treated interstellar war like applied mathematics on Earth. In the underground,